Hello everyone and welcome to the Pitcast, brought to you by the Pit Crew Online, from the fans, for the fans. This week we're going a bit different, we're going a bit off-road. We're here to discuss the restart of the World Rally Championship. I'm joined by our resident World Rally editor, Warren.
Hi everyone, thanks for listening.
So basically this is going to be a bit of a different one. We're just going to talk amongst ourselves really about the restart of the World Rally Championship. I'd just like to start though, we've already had 3 rounds so far. Warren, could you give us a quick sort of overview of the first 3 rounds?
Yeah, so if we go back to January when Monte Carlo took place, so we saw a real dicing and battle between the 2 top Toyota drivers and Thierry Neuville at Hyundai. And overall, ultimately, Thierry came through to take his first victory that round of that event, having threatened to do a few years ago, just at the start of the new WRC rule era in 2017. Moving on, we then had a very, very shortened version of Rally Sweden in February, which only had, I think, something like 8 stages in the end. They had to cancel a whole bundle of stages just purely because of the lack of snow that they'd experienced. Now, normally you'd expect to see huge snow banks for the cars, for the drivers leading the cars against, and it just wasn't the case. Incredibly, we saw Elvin take his first victory with his new co-driver with Toyota, winning the event and ultimately leading the championship. Then we go to Mexico, which was held in March, towards the end of March, final weekend. And Sebastian Ogier, all-time world champion with Volkswagen and also with the M Sport team, he came through to take his first victory for Toyota, having switched from them at the end of last year from Citroën after they pulled out the championship. And coming into this next round, he's now the leader of the championship by a few points over Elvin, who's second, and Thierry, who's in third. So just looking at the reason that Ogier is now leading the championship, he has finished on the podium in all 3 rounds to date, and giving that championship lead. But I think a particular note to talk about is Elvin's victory in Sweden. Some have said that he was lucky, that the conditions weren't normal, and so on. And I've seen some comments like that out there on the various forums. But for me, we saw his class when he won in 2017 on Rally GB. We saw his class. We could see that he had the pace. Again, some said always down to his tyres, but I don't agree with that. But to take a victory in a very specialised round with the snow was particularly strong. And of course, you only have to look back to the 2019 Rally Sweden, which was a much more normal event, and he took stage victory when he was driving M Sport Fiesta. So, you know, he's been there, he's been around the top for a while, and I think he thoroughly deserved that victory. Second in the championship, and of course his first with his new co-driver, former co-driver to his name has slipped my mind completely at this moment in time. But there we go. I've gone blank. Thierry, we know he's strong. We know he's a quick driver. We know he can fight at the front. but he's not quite managed to deliver championship yet. But maybe this will be a different year. So we'll have to wait and see. Moving on, of course, we've got a first ever event being held in Estonia, which is the 4th to the 6th of September, which means we've had a massive gap of about 6 months since the final event, the third event even, of Mexico. So it's going to be a gravel round. It's going to have 17 stages, and in around Tar 2, I gather, is where and then we move on to Turkey, and then Germany, Rally Italia, which is taking the weekend of would have been Rally GB, and then hopefully finally ending the season in Japan. What are your general thoughts on these rounds, Aaron? Heading to the final, hopefully we'll have a champion to celebrate in come late November.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of the sort of notable rounds missing. I mean, we're not going to have a Rally GB this year by the look of it, which is a bit disappointing. The Rally GB is a popular event. Well, I think the ones we've got, I mean, we've got a good mix of surfaces. Germany's purely tarmac, Turkey, and Turkey's a bit more light gravel in it usually. Then there's Estonia to look forward to, which is a bit of an unknown quantity, really. And obviously Estonia's got a good rally heritage, hasn't it, with Ott Tänak at the minute and Marco Martin in not too long ago.
So I mean, they've got obviously one former top class driver driving for Ford back in the early to mid 2000s when they were running the Ford Focuses, WRCs, which are really stunning machines. The first non-French WRC champion since 2003, which is great to see. Ott take that championship last year when he was with Toyota, and obviously that shock switch that came over the winter to Hyundai. Estonia, as far as I understand it, it's a very similar, very proud to Finland, which of course should have been taking place this month in a normal year. Typically after a long 1 month break, or maybe even 6 weeks break. From normally it's Rally Italia, Sardinia that sort of comes before. It's very dusty around. It's kind of probably be quite different when you get to September. Even late October it will be, thinking about it, for Sardinia this year. So, Estonia looks to be pretty quick, very quick gravel with jumps. Probably not as extreme as Finland, but with somebody like Ott Tänak coming through, who's won, of course, Finland a couple of times now. Perhaps we'll see Hyundai kind of taking that kind of victory on that kind of surface at last, which they've struggled for whatever reason with the pace of their car on those surfaces. So perhaps with his first expertise of understanding those roads, they'll get that kind of victory, which they've been really searching for. Turkey, it's a very dusty, quite rough round, quite rocky. Once you get the dirt away on the second run stages, you've got to have very good suspension setup, great tyres that kind of can cope with the heat. So it's going to be quite interesting. Whoever's leading the championship at that point will have to deal with that on the first day. And then, well, Germany, it doesn't really, ideally you want to be first on the road in Germany, because as the cars come through, and particularly the lower classes, the WRC2 and WRC3 cars, they tend to pull a lot more dirt out on the road. So actually leading the championships would be quite a good place to be when you come to Germany. And then back to gravel for Italia, which is very dusty normally, as I said, but just kind of quite different, I think, when we go there in late October, and so on. And then Japan's going to be all tarmac, so it's going to be quite an interesting end to the championship. But yeah, it's all around going to be all happening, I think. Question is, who do we see, going through to take the championship? What are your thoughts, Aaron, on that?
I mean, there's a few good names in there at the minute. There's Oitanak, reigning champion. There's Ogier, who you can never rule out. He's always quick. Thierry Neuville, I feel sorry for. He always seems to be there or thereabouts and just doesn't quite make it over the line. I won't rule out Elvin Evans either. I mean, he's had a good start to the championship so far. And he's in the Toyota, which is the quick car. The one I'm keeping an eye on is Kalle Rovanperä, though. He seems really quick over the first 3 rounds, and I'd like to see him pick a win up before the end of the season.
Yeah, well, he's taken some stage victories already this year, so he's definitely showing that pace. Taking a win, I think a podium has got to be on the cards. A win, a lot of things would have to come together for that, I think. But you never know. I mean, look at what Lappi did in 2017 in Finland. It's only his fourth start in a top car. And yes, okay, he obviously had to rely on Jari Matti having that reliability problem on the Saturday morning, but he came through and he won that. He won that round. As I say, only his 4th start. So yeah, it could happen. You never know. That's what we love about the WRC. It's a different. It is a very different kind of championship to the other world championships, I would say, Aaron. Because you haven't got this bad thing on the track, have you? So it is quite different. And what is it if you just sum up to yourself, what is it that grabbed you, WRC, and why you follow it?
Oh, well, it started 20 years ago when Colin McRae was doing it in the Fords. My dad just put it on the telly because he knew I liked cars. He said it was on, so he just threw it on the telly, and that was it. I was hooked from there. I was sat watching it all sort of from 2002 onwards. So my interest dipped a bit during the Loeb years when he was winning 9 championships on the bounce, but I kept an eye on it, and now it seems to be opening up again more. There seems to be more than just 2 protagonists for the title, so I think it's a lot better now. But I understand you've got a much longer sort of love affair with the WRC. What grabbed you in the first place?
Well, it was just reading reports really way back late 1989. I followed Rally GB, of course, as it was called. It was called the Lombard RAC then, and I recently actually rewatched a lot of the stages and coverage that was put on at the time by William Willard back in the day. And these are very late evening reports that they put together, and there's footage of cars just being thrown about like with wild abandon. And just for me, it was that was my first love of motorsport. So yes, I've followed other sports, other parts of the sport since then, but yeah, that's my first love. And that 1989 round was won by a Finnish driver called Arikala, Pentti Arikala, in a Mitsubishi with 4-wheel drive and 4-wheel steering. So the sound of those cars, and also the Toyotas at that point being driven by Carlos Sainz and other great drivers, and then it was very special. And of course the Lancia Integrales, of course. And of course I actually worked at a garage that at the time it was a Lancia, sold Lancias, and had a few runs in Integrale as a passenger with a rather eager mechanic driver, test driving another change to the setup. It's good memories, and so that's where it started for me. And then I like you actually, I kind of lost interest a bit, lobe after lobe after lobe, and then even with Oshio, coming in, I wasn't really following it as eagerly. With the new rules when they came in, and obviously I started writing about it a few years before the new rules anyway. And there were drivers coming in, and there were, meaning that we had a bit more of a fight going on. Those Lobias, they were dominant. They were like Schumacher, they were us. One year he even didn't complete the season, I think, and he still won his. He had the points cap, So the rules when they came in a few years ago, the cars just look amazing. What do you? So you obviously think who's your money on that? If you're a betting man, who's your likely winner this year? Do you think, Aaron? I'm not really a betting man, but
that's a toughie. Like I said, a couple of years ago, you'd put all your money on Ogier. You bet your house on Ogier to take the title because there was no one. No disrespect to the other drivers, there was just no one that could touch him. But this year, I think it's a 2-horse race, primarily between Tanak and Ogier. And I kind of hope Tanak does it again, to be honest. I'd probably hedge my bets towards him because the car's just, it's quick. I mean, I know they haven't quite got it right, and he had that big off in Monte Carlo. But they might come back. They might. Oh, it was ridiculous. Falling down that 40-foot drop, or whatever it was, down that cliff.
It was just rolling down, wasn't it? And it was, it wasn't a pleasant thing to see. But it was good to see him emerge, and both of them emerge from that one unscathed, relatively. So much so that obviously they took a podium next time out in Sweden. So, that just shows the grit, doesn't it? I think of rally drivers.
Well, it's like years ago. Colin McRae crashed in Corsica. Was on his roof for about 40 odd minutes. Came out with some, I can't remember what the injuries were off the top of my head, but he was racing a week after. He picked up some nasty injuries, but he was fine the next race, and he broke a finger one year as well and was back again in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
They're just made of different stuff, these rally drivers.
Yeah, and they're mechanics because they actually fix their cars as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
See that a lot at the end of stages, changing tyres, and fixing suspension and all sorts. It's great to see. It shows a different side to a driver and a crew, even, because the two of them working together. It's got to be harmonious, otherwise it's not going to end well.
No, definitely. But I think we need to talk about Elvin, don't we? I mean, he's the next.
We do need to talk about Elvin.
He's the British hope in here at the minute. You always like to root for your home driver. And he's winning Sweden. It's quite significant, isn't it? I mean, not many non-Scandinavians win in Sweden. I think there's only been 2 or 3 that I can think of.
Yeah, and it's usually a co-driver alongside a quick finish Finn or as you say, Scandinavian, somebody from Sweden or Norway, taking the actual the trophy for the winning driver. But and we saw in Finland as well. Many years. Brit co-drivers winning, but like Nicky Grist and so on. Sitting alongside Finnish drivers, but we saw in 2016 we saw Chris Meek. He took a pretty strong, incredible victory in Finland. So it's not like the British driver, you know, and the conditions are right, you can show the pace. And I think that's what Elvin showed in Sweden. You know, as I said, you know, there were some, oh, it's not the same event as, you know, normal. But the fact is, the drivers all had the same conditions, didn't they, ultimately, and he came through to win it. So, yeah, um, I think he could definitely win again this year. The question is, where could that be? You know, well, last year, of course, he was well in control of Corsica, the Tour de Corse event last year, and then annoyingly had that puncture, was dropped into third, but he dominated on the tarmac, and I think that's what we've seen with Alvin. He's very good on all surfaces. He's not a one-trick pony. So his first victory in the mud and the dirt of particularly that first day of Rally GB in 2017, he'd been very foggy the day before, and surfaces, particularly in my hearing, where I was spectating on that special day when he built that lead. He just came through, and yes, okay, probably a bit of help on the tyres, but the driver has to do it. And even though Tanak couldn't win on those tyres, so yeah, some people might be surprised. I'm not surprised with Albin. If you go back to 2015 in Corsica, there was that horrendous storms and rocks being washed off the mountain sides and all that, and he was leading overnight into Saturday's stages. And yes, okay, he fell back a bit, but he still took a podium. So yeah, I think possibly Germany, you can take a win there again on the tarmac after challenging so well last year. Where else? I mean, Japan, perhaps maybe you can win for Toyota in Japan. That would be pretty epic, and I think the Japanese fans would really get behind him. Don't you think?
Oh yes.
Well, who knows? I mean, that might actually give him a championship. You know, you just don't know, do you? I mean, that's possible.
I mean, all you have to do in World Rally Championship is keep your car on the road. If you do that, you're bound to pick a result up somewhere. You know, from the misfortune of others, sometimes you're there to pick up the pieces, and you know, I think Elvin could be one of them, but I feel like he could be one of them that's on the pace anyway. I mean, it's in his genes. His dad was a British rally champion, I believe. You know, very quick driver. Never quite made it to the WRC, but Elvin has, and I'd say he's excelling at the minute. You know, he's looking good.
He's really got to home, I think, with the Yaris. I think it really suits him. I think the testing they're able to do as well, because they are a manufacturer. You know, M Sport's amazing. They're an amazing team. The family that Malcolm's created there, you definitely get a feel for that. Interviewed one of Elvin's old engineers a few years ago, and he said, "Look, it's a family. We're literally one big family. Yes, okay, Malcolm's the boss, but he's kind of the head, kind of head of the family." So yeah, I think he's definitely excelling. Having the testing time, time in the car is everything, isn't it? It's like all motorsport in that respect. The more time you got in the car, you know, gelling with your co-driver, which obviously he only changed his co-driver at the start of last year. Yeah, I think it's starting to come together for him. So if he's not a champion at the end of this year, I think you've got to kind of look and hope for maybe next year challenging at the top. So Yeah, I think it's exciting times for the British fans. I just hope they can really get behind him and show them sport. That there's a certain group of fans out there that have always looked out for Alvin, and yeah, um, perhaps the British fans can get more behind him, like we see with Lewis.
Yeah.
That huge support, and I think he'd really benefit massively from that. You know. Um, what else could we talk about?
Is there any young up and comers coming up that you think we should be keeping eyes on?
Yeah, young drivers. Yeah, I think we've got some. We've got a young guy from in the southwest, a guy called Chris Wheeler. I've interviewed him a couple of times. He's a potential start, I think, for the looking forward. Um, they've obviously had a curtailed, him and his co-driver Sean have had a bit of a curtailed season where they've not really been able to do anything. I think they were looking to do one championship, and then obviously everything got closed down, and then they were looking at something else, um, doing some rallycross, but that's all been canned, unfortunately. But I think they've just recently announced this week that they'll be doing the motorsport news championship, um, which includes a visit to Brands Hatch in January. So I'm hoping to go there and visit and to finally meet the young lads that are looking, and they drive in a DS3, which was rebuilt by his dad after a big crash he had during the 2016 season with a former co-driver. So, yeah, there's him. Um, who else? We've discussed Phil Hall. We've had Phil Hall, co-driver, doing some diaries when he was part of um, the lower Formula Fiesta Junior WRC. So I'm not sure what he's doing at the moment, whether he's looking to co-drive or anything like that. But he co-drove Tom Williams in that championship for a couple of seasons, and they were definitely improving. And Tom's still out there, still going to be competing. In fact, I gather he's competing in this upcoming um, M Sport event, which is purely going to be run for all Ford um, rally cars. So that's going to be quite interesting. Again, there's no spectators, obviously, but yeah, we'll wait and see what he's going to be doing. But
I call Greensmith, isn't there? Is it Greensmith?
yeah, Gus is a young guy. He's definitely got potential. He's going to be obviously driving these few rounds again alongside Esapeka and Timu M Sport. Yeah, he has to do a lot of work. I think there's a general feeling that there's he's kind of there a bit because of the money, and we know that motorsport does, require a lot of money. But I think he's definitely shown potential. That's why Malcolm's let him have the car for these events, and we have to wait and see at the end of the year and see what occurs, and whether he carries on or what happens. I think it would, be good to see him continue if he can, show improvement. I think there's definitely one driver we do need to mention. That's Chris Ingram. And amongst this, and I spoke to him and interviewed him, and you might, some of our listeners might have read the interview. If you've not read the interview, do check it out. It's under all the Autosport International from 2020, and he is an exceptional talent. I think the first Brit to win the European Rally Championship in over 50 years. So much so, his funding was not consistent unfortunately, but with a lot of support from his team, Talksport, and and incredibly for the final round in Hungary last year, crowdfunded by his fans, he came through to win that title, despite actually not actually winning a round. But he's a driver we really should see. He should be in WRC. Absolutely. When I spoke to him in January, the drive from him is exceptional. He's a massive talent, and he should have that. He should have the opportunity to be in one of these cars. Absolutely, that I've no doubt. I would place him right up there with Alvin from a consistency, quick driver. Yeah, impressive, very impressive driver. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my feelings. Chris Ingram should definitely be in one of those cars, 100%.
I mean, that's some seal of approval. That is as good as Elvin. So if we
he's up there. Yeah, absolutely.
If we look forward to Estonia, then if you had to say right now who's going to, let's try and do the podium. Who do you think is going to be on that podium?
Let's do a podium prediction. That's a good shout, Aaron. Great idea. I think it's going to be, what can Ogier do? He's first on the road on that gravel. In the tour, we know it's quick. It's going to be quick. Alvin's got to be there, I'm sure. Like Tanak, he could win it, I reckon. Like Tanak, it's his home round, incredibly. He never expected that, I'm sure, at the start of the year. Certainly, Estonia had never probably expected to actually run around. Alvin, he drove there last year, but had a problem. He landed very heavily on a jump, and it actually put him out for a few rounds, and he ended up missing 3 rounds. So yeah, and then obviously Grass got the seat for those events at Antwerp at the time. I think it could be any of those 3 drivers. I'm not sure Thierry could do it, but you never know. With Deutsch Tanak in in that team, when a bit of sharing of data, perhaps we could see Thierry, challenge at least for a podium. He's quick enough. We've seen that he can be quicker. So yeah, I think any of those 4 drivers could win, or at least be on the podium. If any of them drop the ball instead of they're out the event, Packer could be a challenger for the podium. Timu as well. We know he's quick. He's taken some podiums already. Who else? Well, Rovanperä. That he could be there. It could be a Toyota 123. We saw that in Finland last season. So it could be a Toyota 123 with either Alvin or OJ winning, and then Rovanperä there. So yeah, it's all up in the air, and it's going to be spectacular, I'm sure. Just can't wait to see the actual, what the stage maps, what the stages are actually going to be looking like, and so on. That's going to be very exciting to find out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's it, unless there's else you can think of.
Yeah, I think that's good.
We're good, right?
So how long have we been going for?
So obviously, thanks very much for listening. I've been Aaron, your host, and you can find me on Twitter at AaronAirwin7. Warren, do you want to give your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I'm Warren _S_now, or you can just search me up as Warren, the Pit Crew WRC editor on Twitter. and come and check us out on the Pit Crew Online.
Obviously, Warren's our main rallying correspondent, so it's worth giving him a look to find all the information, all his reports and such. But yeah, that's it from us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you out on track
Or on the stage.